All right, welcome everybody. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. Feel free to add your pronouns and your neighborhood council or organization or whatever brought you here today. We'd love to hear all of that. The mission of the NCSA is to advance sustainability and resilience across LA through advocacy, sharing of best practices, and community action. We have a variety of committees, and we'll hear report backs from most of those, I think, at the end of the evening. So stay tuned to learn more. And these are open to any stakeholder in LA. Anybody is welcome to join, and we have a lot of information on our website about them. We are recording thanks to Glenn, who always reminds me to record. Please introduce yourself in the chat. And in your screen name, if you can introduce, add your neighborhood council or organization, that's helpful also. Also, I will be, and Muriel at one point might be changing your screen name because we will have one vote this evening. And to distinguish voters from non-voters, we will make a little change to the beginning of your name. So don't freak out when that happens. Today is designed to be super interactive. So just use the raise hand feature to participate. I always forget if that's *6 or *9 on the phone because I never use the phone, but I think if you're on the phone, you know. We have some community agreements that we're going to ask everybody to share. And that is really important. And if people are not following them, I will say I am comfortable removing people if I think they're not following them. So we wanted to give you guys a heads up about that. And we have an evaluation form that we always love to share with you because we love to hear what you think and what you like about these meetings and what you don't like about these meetings. We like to hear both. Okay, here's our agenda. We're gonna, in moments, we'll be hearing from Kenneth Mejia, candidate for city controller. Then we'll be hearing, talking about the LA Zoo extension proposal. Then we'll have a vote on the oil drilling draft ordinance, which is, this has been years in the works. This is super exciting. It's coming to fruition. And we're gonna talk about the Olympics because we've been approached by LA 28 and we wanna think that through with you a little bit. And then we'll go to program and committee updates and hear from anybody who wants to share any announcements. And then I'll try to remind you folks again to complete the evaluations. And I'll try to get a link to the evaluation form in the chat soon. Okay, here are our community agreements. We would like you, if you can, I know not everybody can, but if you can, to turn on your camera and show your face so that we can all be building a community. We ask that you assume good intent and give people the benefit of the doubt. I know that is not easy, and I do not always do that myself, but we ask that we aspire to that. We ask that everybody demonstrate respect and appreciation and refrain from having too many side conversations in the chat. I love the chat, but we want to keep it on target and also follow the community agreements in the chat as well as in conversation. We ask that everybody listen intently, and we ask that people step forward and then step back, meaning we do ask, we have a lot of folks, so we want everybody to contribute, but we also want everybody to provide space for others to contribute. And we ask that everybody be concise and succinct. And of course, we want to have fun. Okay, that's the end of my slides. So in a moment, I'm going to hand it over to, oh, you know what, I did want to say, it's, I've been reminded today that it is the anniversary, it is September 11th, the anniversary of September 11th, 2001. And that is, just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that. That means different things to different people, but it was a very dark day. So just wanted to mention that. So we are going to talk with Kenneth Mejia, Muriel Nakar. Oh, and I forgot to introduce our board, and we have some new board members. So let me do that first. So I always forget to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Hart. I'm on the board of the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. Muriel, can you please introduce yourself?
I'm also
okay. Muriel, your audio is not So, okay, I'm gonna mute you. And I might do the part that Muriel was gonna do. That's very sad. So Muriel, you can text me and let me know what's happening on your end. Charles, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Hey guys, Charles Miller. Most of you know me as a tree hugger and native plants freak, but been involved in lots of sustainability issues for a long time, originally for a long time from Palms Neighborhood Council, and remain a Palms resident, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. And Charles just joined our board, as did Chris. Chris, can you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, there might be some babies yelling in the background. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm a new board member of the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. I'm also a large board member for Tarzan Neighborhood Council. And yeah, I'm fortunate to be in this group with everybody here who's really trying to make a difference in sustainability in our city. Thanks. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. And I doubt that Dawn is here. Dawn, are you here? I don't see Dawn. And Lorraine Lundquist has stepped down from our board. I'm very, very sad to see her go. I'd like her to come back someday so we can give her a proper goodbye. She's been very instrumental in the background in a lot of our positions over the years, and she's just a wealth of knowledge. So it's been amazing to have her here. Okay, so moving on to a conversation with Kenneth. We did invite Councilmember Paul Koretz to come tonight. His campaign declined, and I thought about it, and I thought I should say a couple things about that. And the gist is I work really closely with his office, and I am sad, I'm frustrated, because I think he has done a lot on the front of sustainability, and I mean, he's not perfect. I think, I think we as a body, not many of us, but maybe not all of us, but many of us would think that he's not as strong on transportation and housing as we would like. And there are some other, and I'm sure many of the people in this room would disagree very strongly about many of his positions. But certainly on many aspects of the climate crisis, he's been very strong and cutting edge, really at the forefront of City Council. And some of the things we're talking about tonight will be from his office. And Pool Box is a program that comes from his office, and that's something that we are, heavily engaged in and leading. So I just thought I should say that I'm sad he's not here, but he's missing that opportunity to showcase that. But we have an amazing opportunity to talk with Kenneth Mejia, who's a really exciting candidate for city controller. So, and I don't know if Muriel's audio is fixed, or Muriel, should we try one more time?
I just re-signed on. Does that work?
I think so. I'm not sure. It sounds better. So let me hand it over to Muriel, who's going to facilitate the conversation with Kenneth this evening.
Okay. I just want to say thank you so much, Kenneth, for making the time to make our meeting. So basically, everyone, Kenneth is going to make some introductory remarks, and then we're going to open up to a conversation. Raise your hand if you have a question. I'm going to be as fair as possible. Whoever I can see, I will allow them to speak first. First come, first serve. And then also introduce yourself before you speak. Let me know what part of the neighborhood and within LA that you're from, so he knows where exactly where you're coming from. And then again, so Kenneth, just introduce yourself very briefly, talk about why you're running, how the city controller role could affect your efforts towards moving towards a more sustainable city.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I appreciate you all for taking the time on this Sunday. My name is Kenneth Mejia, he, him. I am a certified public accountant and a housing justice activist who ran for city controller. In June, we won first place by 20% in a crowd of 7 people total. The main goals of our campaign is to provide financial transparency and accountability on city government, especially when it comes to the way we spend our money, and in terms of making that information accessible and easy to understand And so, our campaign has been doing a lot of that. We've created a lot of resources and tools related to homelessness, to housing, to parks, dog parks, to city payroll information. And so, our campaign is glad to be here. We're endorsed by a lot of youth organizations who are on the climate justice fight, such as Youth Climate Strike LA and Sunrise Movement, the Jane Fonda Climate Pact. And so, as city controller, we want to make sure that we are not in a policymaking position. So we can't tell people like, hey, like start decarbonizing or start retrofitting your buildings to be more green, or, move to 100% clean renewable energy by 2030. I don't have that power, but I do have the power of the bully pulpit. And I think that's what's really good about having a city controller who's not afraid to go after anyone in City Hall who's not, for that, or, these companies that are polluting our air. And so pretty much, I want to make sure that I can do that as your city controller, to work in coalition with you all. And I also want to give a shout out to one of our team members who's also here too. His name is Kyler Chin. He's our director of technology, but he's experienced as well in environmental justice. He built our website. So if you've ever seen our maps, he's very good on the technology front, but also in the environmental justice front as well. So Kyler's here too, and he'll be joining me if we have questions. But feel free to talk. I'm here to learn. I'm here to hear your all concerns. My specialty, like I said, is on finance and auditing. And so anything I can do to, hold the city accountable through our performance audits or financial audits to get to a more sustainable LA, I'm all for it. So thank you all for having me.
Okay, wow, we have a bunch of questions. Okay, let me start with Glenn.
Wait,
Glenn, do you
actually,
wanna-
Mindy is the first person who's raised her hand. She's on the far left-hand corner, so let's do it that
I
way.
did not. Okay, I just saw it off from my left. Okay, okay, Mindy, I guess.
Okay, I didn't realize I was so quick. So thank you. I'm glad that you were here today, and I'm sorry that your opposition is not. So I don't have a question about sustainability, so I hope it's okay if I'm not asking about sustainability today. So I'm glad that you're not afraid to use the bully pulpit, and that you're not afraid to go after people. I like that, but I'm also big on civility. And I want to know whether or not there have been some accusations and some emails going around, and I've been the recipient of some of these emails. So I prefer to hear it from you directly to find out if these accusations are correct or not. So I've heard that you were behind the attack on the city council that day. And I'd like to find out if that was true or not. And that you disrupted the meeting, at least you were behind the people who did disrupt the meeting that day. I'd like to find out, was that true or not? That's one thing. And then secondly, that there were a bunch of emails I heard. I was reading the news reports about you, and that there were a bunch of emails that were out there that you were responsible for, and then you erased them. And then some of them were very anti-Israel and very pro-Palestinian. Do you have anything that you'd like to say about that?
Right now, we are getting attacked a lot by opposition because we are winning overwhelmingly. We are providing an alternative to Los Angeles that's focused on transparency and accountability. And like what you mentioned at the beginning of your question about going after City Hall because we're sick of the status quo. So not true. I did not disrupt or start or be behind any disruptions. But we know our opponent are going to attack and hit us on all these things, and that's just how city politics is, especially when you're up against an establishment person who has big money behind them and can just amplify that a lot. So that's why I'm here to focus on many of these issues like sustainability, on transparency, on accountability. But no, I wasn't behind that at all. dirty politics is dirty politics. It's really sad. And, I do look forward to winning in the general, focused on these issues. I'm a supporter, of the Jewish community. Our team members we have so many who are leaders in the Jewish community on our team who actually lead us. And so, the things being thrown around about me being anti-Semitic is also not true as well. And so, I want to make sure that I want to focus on these issues that affect the city of LA. And really, really, when I talk to voters, they're just sick of the same old same. And I hope that we can provide that difference.
Okay, because I understand that there were some photos that you were there heckling, so I don't know, I don't want to, so, okay, I mean, I hope I can take you at your word, but I'll have to look into it further, so thank you.
Okay, next is, was Glenn next, Lisa?
Well, I don't know why he's not at the top. Maybe he dropped out and put his hand back up. It looks like Joanna is next to me.
Because I was renamed, the V was put in front of my name.
Oh, fair enough. Good point. So go ahead, Glenn. Sorry about that. That's a good point.
Yeah, we'll have Glenn next.
Thanks, Kenneth, for being here. So I'm, among other things, I am been involved with the Neighborhood Council Budget Advocates, and the current controller, Ron Galperin, got his initial involvement with being on Neighborhood Council and becoming involved with Budget Advocates before he started off on his journey to where he got to. And one of the things that so I just want to bring up two issues, and I think you confirm. One is what I've seen so far from your campaign is you seem to be inclined to continue his efforts to accumulate data and make it available. And again, that's my observation, but you should put it in your own words, I suppose. And then the second issue that's come up is the audits that are done by the city controller's office. And I know there's only so much money in the budget, and apparently it's being cut back in terms of the number of audits that you could be doing. One of the things that can make neighborhood councils more effective in influencing all the city departments is for us to be able to get the information, both in terms of the initial example plus the audit example. And I'll just finish up with, there has been a lot of question raised about the expenditures of monies by the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment during this last election cycle in particular. And wonder if you had any comments regarding that, including any audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you for your involvement on the Budget Advocates. I forgot to mention too in the beginning, I was a neighborhood council board member as well in the Wilshire Center, Koreatown neighborhood council. To your first question, definitely any city controller that has built what we got up to today, we want to build on that and make it better. We take what our people who've come before us, and we want to improve on it. We want to make data even more accessible, more easy to understand. But another thing too is also add an educational component. I think when I speak to a lot of people, when they try to use Ron's website, it could be very confusing sometimes. So what I've been trying to do is every week or two, I actually do Zoom classes to teach people how to use Excel, how to file a tax return, how to use the controller's website, how to read the budget. And I think that's one thing as well that I'd like to do is have that education, because financial data can be very voluminous and confusing. To your second point, you're correct. We don't have a large budget. Our budget's actually controlled by the city council and by the mayor. And so, if one day they're like, you know what, we don't want to give them the controller Mejia enough money, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, I can't do as many audits. So I think we have to then figure out what audits would be most material, for the people of Los Angeles, and be, that we can do in a timely manner. And I could also see myself too. And one thing that's unique about me as a controller is I could actually dig in as an auditor myself. So that's what I've done with some of our reports and our resources on our website, because I have that background. So I would love to do that. But I also think that our city council is changing, where we're going to get more city council members who are going to appreciate the controller's role in providing oversight and working hand to hand, to finding efficiencies and effectiveness. And to your last point about the Department of Neighborhood empowerment, yeah, I've definitely heard about, spending on things that did not make sense, or it, such as on, promotions. We would spend tens of thousands of dollars. And then when you actually look at what was done, it was just like a small Facebook post, and we paid like a consulting company like a ton of money for that. So definitely, I do think there are some mismanagement happening in terms of those funding. And I think that's what we want to try to get down to at the city controller, not just for Dunn, but for every city department. Look at these contracts that we're spending on, third-party vendors, nonprofits, companies, in which we pay a large amount. And then when you look at the actual result, it's like, what? Like, why did we pay that company $50,000 for a Facebook post? Or it wasn't worth it. And so definitely, I want to make sure that I can help out there too. So thank you.
Okay, we have a long list of questions. Shelley?
I think you should go in order of the hands raised. So I think it would be Joanne.
I thought it was, okay, from what I see, I thought it was just from what I see from the top. Okay, fine. So Joanne's next. I'm sorry, Shelley.
All right. I think I pulled ahead, but never mind.
Well, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but you're first on my list, Joanne.
Okay. All right. So your predecessor, Kenneth, did use the bully pulpit too. And sometimes I think he meant well, but he didn't have the knowledge base behind it. And, I chair the trees committee, and he came out with a big statement about trees and sidewalks. And I don't think he really checked with, say, the Community Forest Advisory Committee or any of the people that have done a deep dive into trees. And so my question is, would you try to find out what all is going on before you hit the bully pulpit? I know that, obviously you're probably going to say yes, but I think that I'm asking this question more as a reminder that there are organizations, for instance, CFAC meets regularly with the city forest officer, with urban forestry, with the parks and so forth. And when we meet, we actually bring up a lot of issues. We're not just taking back what they say. So, it's a give and take. And so we're trying to create better relationships. And the other issue that we've come across is that when housing becomes a priority, people tend to forget about the trees. And we had tried to get an ecological urban planner and we had worked with the council office and so forth to get this position in the city, even with Adel Hash Khalil suggesting it and so forth. And when the job description got written, it was changed, and it turned out to be nothing like what we thought. And I don't really have a grasp of how these job descriptions get changed by the city into something more minimal. But I see a lot of issues between the departments where things just go amiss. And I'm wondering, what do you think your role is to help some of this?
Great questions. The first question about, checking in before we use the bully pulpit, definitely. I mean, a lot of our platform has been created by impacted communities, whether it's related to homelessness, housing, the environment, public transit, Los Angeles, animal welfare. So we definitely check in, and as city controller, would love to do co-governance with the people, because I truly believe the true power of the controller is, since we don't have that policy making power where we can pass laws or move money around, you know, in terms of the budget, co-governance with the people puts that pressure on that council member or on the mayor to actually make it happen. So to your question, yes, definitely checking in before with these organizations before we use it. So yes, the second question about departments, and they have employees, and you know, sometimes they're not effective or efficient in working together to get, you know, a goal or a common task done. Definitely, I think that's what a lot of people's frustrations are in Los Angeles. I know, speaking of voters, they have to call like multiple different departments to get their trees trimmed, or their sidewalks are elevated or messed up. And you know, I talked to a voter yesterday who had to spend $1,000 to cut her trees because she couldn't wait any longer. But definitely, I do think the controller could come in and do those performance audits to see where those gaps are. And, you know, in the auditing world, we'd perform walkthroughs, right? Walkthroughs and see where along the line, like, oh, I think this is where it gets inefficient or ineffective, where we then have to communicate with 3 other departments and get permission from each department before we do the next step. And I think that's where I could come in and give those recommendations for better efficiencies and effectiveness. So the inner communications between departments are better.
Thank you. Okay, next down the line, Shelley. Sorry for interrupting you. And make these questions a little bit more succinct, please. I have a long list of people, so try to limit it to like a minute for your questions so we could get through the long list.
I'll make it very short. I am Shelley Scoggin. I live in downtown LA. And Kenny, your CPA license was active for 3 years before you went into politics, and you were employed for only 6 years before going into politics. So I was just wondering how you calculate your 11 years of accounting and auditing experience.
Hey, Shelley. We actually used to work together. That's awesome. Yeah. Good to see you here. So I graduated 2010. I started work with Ernst & Young in 2010. And then in 2014, worked at an investment firm with Shelley. I did fund accounting there, not operations, was in the fund accounting area. And then from there in 2016, worked at Activision. And then after Activision, I went to a startup company called Wheels, and then where I managed accounting. And then until recently was at EVgo, managing our accounting for a public company called EVgo. And then until recently this year, I quit so I could focus on this full time. And I think it paid off. It paid off really well. But I got my certified public accounting license doing public accounting, doing auditing at the Big Four for Ernst & Young. You only need your CPA license to be active when you are performing CPA tasks and where you provide client services, so such as auditing or tax prep. So I did that from 2010 to 2014 at Ernst & Young. But after that, you don't need a CPA or an active CPA to do accounting. And so that's how I got my experience. And tell everyone I say hello, Shelley. I miss everyone out there. Hope y'all are doing well.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next is Pat Bates from Encino.
Hi. I was wolfing down my dinner and didn't expect to get called on right then. Glad to see everyone. I am a retired CPA. Things I am interested in is, do you have any interest in, for example, linking up political contributions with development projects in our environmentally sensitive areas, and combined with zoning variances and entitlements. Thank you.
Can you clarify the part about linking campaign donations with the developers again?
Well, you know, it seems like every time something gets in the news in LA, it's a developer and it's money. And somehow there's always a city official linked in. So what are your thoughts about that? I know it's a little vague, but you know, going back, we've got Englander, we've got Weezer. You know, how far back do you want me to go?
No, I get it. Thank you, Pat, for the question. I just want to make sure. I was like, okay, I think I get what she's getting to. But I just want to make a comment. Like, this is Los Angeles City Council. Every year or so, we have someone getting indicted in the City Council, and it's. I think that is why we won overwhelmingly in June, because I think people are just sick of the status quo of these career politicians who either are corrupt, who get caught, or are just not doing anything. But you know, one thing I do pride our campaign on is on our donation list. We say we do not accept money from developers at all. Don't give it to us. We even reject it. I'm a housing justice advocate, so definitely that's something that I take pride in. But you know, I would love, and I don't think the controller, I would love to see what the controller could do in terms of maybe looking at or making connections with the contracts that we have with developers, or who developers we give, you know, our blessing to build XYZ somewhere, and then just seeing if they do have a connection with any of these council members. Because I think if you, in an audit, if you know, if you have a paper trail, you could see if there's something fishy going on. And I know the ethics committee handles more of that, but they too are also strapped like our office as well. But you know, I definitely do think, you know, over these past couple of years, there might be a sad pattern of developers and those working in City Hall who might be working together. And hopefully as controller, I can put a spotlight on that, or at least maybe create a database of all the developers that's easy to use, and make public communications more transparent so people could see that without having a CPRA everything.
Thank you. So Faith Mira.
Hi, I just had a quick question, and I'm sure there's actually a long list to this question, so feel free just to pick a few. But with climate change, I think on everyone's mind at the moment, what are some things that you feel the city controller can do to address climate change, and what specifically would you like to see?
Great question. Thank you, Faith, for that. You know, I think as city controller, there can be such a unique role on what we can do, you know, as the city's accountant, as the city's auditor, right? I would love to be able to audit and create transparency on funds and programs that address climate change. Because right now, a lot of people don't know what the city's doing on that, right? Or which dollars we are spending actually are being used to tackle it. You know, we do still spend money on gas. You know, we still are getting some energy and nuclear still in Arizona. So auditing our spending on addressing climate change is one thing. The another thing we'd like to do too is auditing the mayor's Green New Deal. That passed years ago. And one of the biggest things that I've heard is that no one knows what the progress is so far, the timeline of these milestones that we were supposed to hit, if we hit it, or what the status is. So I think just creating a public database or dashboard that could show how we're doing on the mayor's Green New Deal, whether if it, you know, people believe it's as aggressive as it should be or not. But yeah, you know, the LA City Controller Ron Galpin also did an audit on oil and gas wells in the city of LA, and that's something we'd like to do a re-update on to see how many oil wells are still active, how many haven't been plugged or are just still there, because it can be very, very costly and also unhealthy, right? Another thing too, and there's just so much we could probably talk about, but audit our fossil fuel investments. As many of you know, we invest our city employees' pensions and our dollars, in funds that might not be investing in ethical corporations or stocks of these companies who might be big oil. So that'd be something that we could try to identify and hopefully divest in. And then also just, you can't talk about sustainability or climate change without talking about transportation. So making sure that we, as controller, we do provide oversight on what the city is doing to provide a way to make LA less car dependent, right? Because it can save a lot more money. It creates accessibility. It also increases public safety too, because when you have more people out on the streets walking or biking or scooting or on transit, you create more of a community space versus everyone just having to, be in their car. So that's also another thing too that we'd like to do as city control.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see, AJ?
Yes, thanks. Sorry for the slight delay. First off, Kenneth, thanks for being on here. One important question that I've been wanting to address is just a lot of changes in, our water restrictions. And one of the things which I'm sure a lot of people on the board can relate to is that, we would comply with the water restrictions with LADWP, then suddenly our rates are going up again. So just kind of bringing it to this conversation, what would you say that you would do as far as audit, maintaining oversight with water and power? Because I have to admit that ever since that incident and the huge investigation with LADWP, it's definitely caused a lot of distrust on my part, and I'm sure on a lot of the other stakeholders' part as well.
Great question. Outside of when I talk to voters, one of the top 5 departments they want us to look into is LADWP. I think a lot of people, like what you said, they don't trust them because of the scandal that happened. And a lot of these ratepayers, us taxpayers, we're the ones who got screwed over, right? By a billing system that wasn't checked, it wasn't working, and people ended up paying hundreds or thousands of dollars. And so definitely, I think auditing the LADWP would be a huge monumental task, because it's like its own department in the city, and it has a huge budget of its own, as big as the cities. So definitely that would be one thing that we would like to look into, is see how the LADWP charges their customers, and sort of explain it to them in layman terms too, because I think it could definitely be confusing about rates and how it all ties in together, especially with water and power. So definitely that's an area that we do want to go into, is to breed more transparency and accountability on the LADWP.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next is Barbara Broyd. Oh, there she is. Barbara? Okay. Barbara, are you there? Let's go to Natalie Friedberg.
Hi there. Hi, Kenneth. Congratulations on running a very successful campaign so far. You've been able to energize a lot of people. Your messaging does actually include policy issues from climate goals to public safety and traffic. But as you said earlier, you really wouldn't have any direct control over policy since the controller isn't a policy maker. For example, you do have a plan to transition to 100% clean energy on your website. And that plan, LA 100, already exists. And it's actually already being pursued as directed by current council members, including Councilmember Koretz. Considering that the race for controller has become so aggressive and divisive, including over some of these policy issues, why promise policy and progress on matters which you'd have no jurisdiction over and or which are already happening? Thanks.
You know, I think our what we want to do is make that information more and more transparent, right? The LA 100 study was great, but what we want to do is show people what's happening with that, right? I think one thing as city controller we can do is push people in the city to make that information more easily accessible, easy to understand, and just provide those goals and those timelines, especially in regards to reaching those milestones. I think that's one of the biggest things we hear when we talk to residents, you know, in Westlake or South LA or Pico Union or in areas where they're suffering from environmental racism. What's happening with my neighborhood? Where are the trees? Where are we at with the Green New Deal or moving there? And, you know, if these are things that are happening, we just want to know where is it and can you show it to us? And so I think as controller, we want to make that information more and more and more transparent and just easy to understand and out there.
And how would you do that since the information is already public and it's out there?
Well, I think—
What would you do? I guess what would you do differently is the question.
I think there needs to be better outreach. You know, as you said, or like in the beginning of your question, you said our campaign has been really good at energizing and revitalizing and just communicating. I think that's maybe a part that can be missing, right? So if you try to look at the LA 100, you get this this website and this study, but where is the outreach to the community to let people know how that's happening, right? Could there be any other forms of community outreach to make that happen? Where can we see examples of these milestones being reached? And I think, you know, whether that's through the use of phone calls, social media, or websites, or ads, there just needs to be better ways to make this information more known so that people aren't just like frustrated. And so—
But how would you do that? How would you do that as controller, since you would have a very full-time job, you know, doing audits and things like that? How would you be able, right now, you are able to focus more on social media and so forth, but how would you be able to do that as controller? How would you be involved in that?
I think that would be quite easy for us. You know, any department or any program that is so important to the people, whether it's homelessness, whether it's housing, public safety, or the environment, if there's not a way for departments, and maybe this is something we could streamline, right? Like maybe this is not just a department or a program by program thing or a department by department thing, but it could be an entire citywide thing in terms of how are we effectively communicating our goals, our numbers, our progress to people. And I think that's something that we can do when we give our recommendations, especially in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, right? And so definitely, I think that could be something that could be done citywide. When you know, I could picture myself when I get into the controller's office and just meeting with each city department, asking them, what are your performance measures? All right, how are you effectively communicating this with people? And then sort of come up with these recs and these recommendations and hold them accountable and say, hey, we gave you these recommendations. Are you doing it? Do people understand what you're saying? And are these getting to people in a way that they understand it? So.
And just to follow up on that, and then I'll let someone else ask, but how do you measure how many people are understanding something like LA 100? I mean, what would be the metric that you would use for that?
Well, I think the metric that would be used for that is when you talk to people, whether it's through a survey or through canvassing, some sort of numerical feedback would be given, and seeing if they understood, whether it's a website or it's a PowerPoint or whether it's a 200-page report on LA 100, right? And just seeing that they understood the main points of the goal so far. How are we doing in terms of reaching 100% clean renewable energy, whether it's by 2045, whether it's by 2035 or not. And then just seeing that they are getting that communication and that they are aware of it. And that could be done whether through websites, surveys, or just feedback through either Canvas or door or phone calls.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Chris, our very own.
Thank you, Mariel. I can hear you. Sounds great now. Microphone. Where's Kenneth? Hey, hi, Kenneth. How are you?
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people have been asking questions that have nothing to do with sustainability, and that's okay. That's their opportunity to ask Kenneth all sorts of questions related to everything else, which I have a lot of questions, by the way. I have so many questions, but I know we don't have a lot of time to do that. I think you touched on it, Kenneth, about the Green New Deal. And back, I think in May, when we were all there for Mayor Garcetti's, update. And I think, what I noticed when I was there, there was maybe, I don't know, maybe 25 people there. There wasn't a lot of people. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, I observe a lot of things. I'm looking around. They shut the gate on, I forget what street it was, Lisa. But I noticed there was very little people there. There wasn't a lot of young people at all. And so I know, there's all different ages in this group. And, just on a separate note, some of the questions seemed a little condescending towards you based on your age, which I don't really think is a fair thing to do. You're very smart. You've been doing very well. And, it's an opportunity for a lot of people to engage. But my point is, there wasn't a lot of young people there. And how, it's not necessarily your job as a controller, but how do you keep spreading the word? If you do win this election for this controller position, how do you keep that momentum? How do you keep yourself honest? How do you keep yourself connecting with younger people? There's not a lot of younger people in this group today, but to get them more involved, the transparency, putting the graphs, the billboards all throughout the city, not every part of the city, but my main thing is, keeping the younger generation. I'm 42, so I don't know if I'm young anymore, but to keep things moving forward with sustainability, especially. Okay, sorry, you guys, we are past time. So I must remind our question askers to be succinct. And I'm afraid I also have to ask Kenneth to be succinct because we have to have a very intense conversation on the Zoom. So apologies for interrupting, but we must move at a quicker pace. No worries. That's it.
Thank you, Chris. And I really appreciate the encouragement and support. But to keep this momentum going, I think one of the reasons why we're so exciting is because we've made a position that no one has ever heard about in their entire life known. And I think we've done that through getting the youth and people engaged, whether that's through social media, through billboards, through, doing a dance on TikTok with, something about the environment behind me. And they're like, oh, okay, that affects my future. I'm going to get more involved. So I think that's what we'd like to continue is continue this creativity of communicating to people. I think that's like creating great policies and results, but no one feeling it or knowing about it can be, detrimental for people who don't have access to that information. And so I'd love to get that in people's hands or eyes and ears any way possible as what we've been doing through our campaign.
Awesome, thank you. So next, sorry, I'm just trying to go down the list. Jamie York, again, make it succinct, on both ends.
Hi. Sorry, I can't have my camera on. My internet's terrible. So my first question is hopefully just a yes or no. Would you commit to releasing council member discretionary spending data. That's something that my neighborhood council has been very interested in because we'd like to analyze it from a position of equity. Second, most people who know me from the neighborhood council system know about my interest in ethics issues. One of the things that I think is not really talked about enough, but is really important, is that the city controller gets to nominate someone to the ethics commission. Can you tell us a little bit more about the qualities that you would look for in someone that, should you win, you would put on the ethics commission? And then three, like Glenn Daly talked about, we have a lot of concerns about spending. Our neighborhood council is kind of notorious for that. We've talked about the done spending. We also talked about the spending at animal services with the glue contract and the way in which that's not being fulfilled. So I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about auditing contracts. And then the last one is that the data liaison program for neighborhood councils was sort of unceremoniously cut. Should you win, would you commit to doing a yearly training with neighborhood council members, for neighborhood council members, on utilizing the various data tools within the city? Thanks.
Okay, I think there are 4 questions, so let me see if I can get it down. So the first one, auditing and providing transparency on discretionary funds, 100%. It's council members will probably hate me, but people want to know where the money is. I want to know where the money is going. These are our money. These are our tax dollars. So yes. The second question was, what was the second?
Qualities of someone that you would put on the ethics commission.
Okay, sorry. Qualities of someone that, you know, I'd like to see on the ethics commission is someone who is 100% dedicated to the people. I think every time they make a decision or they're doing judgments or reviewing cases or anything, is they're always keeping in mind the people, and not like, oh my God, this might upset people, or it might upset a council member. So someone who is dedicated to the people, who has integrity, and who's not afraid to call out injustice where it's at, and seek justice when it's needed. So that's what I like. And the third one about, I think, was it city contracts with, or sorry, was it Department of Neighborhood Empowerment?
I went fast. One is a yearly training for neighborhood council members on the various tools. And then also talking a little bit about how you would audit city contracts, because every time I dig into one, I find malfeasance and it makes me sad.
Yes, okay, now I remember. Yeah, definitely would love to do education and tools. I think our campaign has been doing some of those too, when we teach people how to use the city's websites, how to use Microsoft programs. So definitely I think that needs to be needed, and the data liaison for neighborhood councils needs to be there so that people know how to use the city's data. It's so powerful. Like if you've seen our website, our entire website is made up of city data. And I think it'd be beneficial if people knew how to use it too, not just our campaign. And then also auditing city contracts, like definitely, especially, you know, I know I don't have that many people on our team when we win, but auditing at least the major contracts, auditing the big no bid contracts are another thing too as well. And then not just auditing that, but then connecting those audits and those contracts to actual performance measures, right? It's like, if we paid $2 million for something, what did we get out of it? You know, it's like, oh, okay, you got like 10 fundraising emails. You know, it's like, what? We paid $2 million for 10 fundraising emails. That's ridiculous. But definitely, I would love to create a dashboard on no bid contracts, especially large ones, and provide transparency on them.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so the next questions, we could only restrict it to 1 question, please, and just try to keep it as succinct as possible. I appreciated the speed, but there are a long list of people. So let's see. The next one is Christine Louise Mills, who has also been very collaborative in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenneth, for being here. Thank you, Muriel. To be super quick, I appreciate all the accessibility of the information. And I was looking back at the interactive affordable housing map on your website. I know there's like 1 unit listed on the street where I live, but I also know that there's an empty apartment that has been vacant for over 2 years. And we are in a situation where our neighborhood is hugely gentrifying. Prices are off the charts. And I honestly don't even know, like, is there a way of holding property owners accountable for not leasing units that are available. There was a family of 5 in there and it has been vacant. And I think that, you know, it's just like, are they waiting people out? They're not servicing the building, none of those things. And it doesn't seem like there are a lot of resources for the tenants, or if you're not the tenant, like, what do you do when you're aware of a situation like that?
That's definitely a big thing that we've encountered. And I'll just put our resource website here. If people want to check out all the cool data tools and maps that we've created. But that is actually a big problem where a lot of these buildings, especially the new luxury condos, they have these low-income units and they're not being promoted, they're not being shared, or when people call, the landlord is saying, oh, it's not available, but or they say, they make up another excuse like, oh, you need to have a Section 8 voucher to get it. But in reality, you just need to meet the income requirements, right? And so I think one way for this particular issue to get these tenants in these empty low-income units would be to work with the LA Housing Department, because this actually lines up with them, and also maybe the city attorney too, but the LA Housing Department, I think they're also short-staffed too, but they have investigators, and I think they need to help these prospective tenants to hold these landlords accountable who do have these low-income units, you know, that they have a contract with the city of LA to have affordable housing covenants, and they need to let them know like, hey, you have 5 empty units here. And if they say, yes, we have people there, they have to have the guts to go in and inspect it, to actually see if there's 5 people who live there. You know, I just give one instance, you know, 2 weeks ago, a prospective tenant emailed me saying that a landlord said that she needed a Section 8 voucher to get this unit. And I called the landlord myself, and I was like, hey, my name is Kenneth Mejia. That's not true. You only need to submit an application for income requirements. And next thing you know, she started reviewing the application after that. And it's like, that's not my job as controller, although that would be cool. Imagine like me calling every landlord as controller when I'm, hey, as the controller, make sure you lease all your low income units, but I can't do that. It's actually the housing department. So I would love to get the housing department to be able to have those fundings, those staffings, to make sure that these landlords are renting out these low income units, because they did get incentives from the city to make sure they have that building.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Lisa, how many more people do you feel like we should have?
I would like to try to get through everybody except for, I'm sorry, Barbara, but maybe not you, because we spent a little time trying to track you down. But if everybody could go quickly, we could do everybody, but we are going to be more than 15 minutes behind, which puts us in a pickle.
Okay, so Dylan, if you can unmute yourself, one question, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. So I put something in the chat and Kenneth wrote back, we'd like to try to get more money, but here's my question. My understanding is that the controller's job is to create audits by working with the general managers and taking recommendations from city council as well as the people. Once those audits are completed, and there's, I think, no more than 15 within the budget right now, recommendations will only be advanced based on, you know, the working relationships with council. How do you plan to create those relationships to get these ideas implemented when you have you or people on your payroll have protested at every council member's home or have aggressed potential mayoral candidates, including Karen Bass at the synagogue, by calling one of your people on your payroll, called her a effing liar. How do you kind of see yourself getting any of your good ideas implemented when you've alienated the entire city council and your people on your payroll that are taxpayer funded have aggressed? I think one of them, Sean, actually physically assaulted Kevin DeLeon on the street. How do you, I guess I'm missing the disconnect between how you're practicing in your behavior and how you attempt to get these done. Could you tell me what your plan is?
First of all, those people you're mentioning on all these hit pieces that people keep attacking us on, you know, using words like they're your staff. They're not. They're volunteers.
No, they're paid for, because I read your ethics expenditures. They are paid for. I saw $1,500 to Sim Bellel, the gentleman who called Karen Bass a effing liar and hated the poor people and did everything only for the rich people at the synagogue in San Fernando Valley. I saw him on your expenditure sheet.
Yes,
Excuse me,
so
can we refrain from the back and forth? We need him to answer the question. We don't need to hear.
Yeah, but I
Let
need
him
him to
answer.
know that he's lying, but he's lying.
We
so
can do this in a respectful manner, please.
Okay.
So
tell me
our
the truth.
so our campaign, like Sim, if there's volunteers who help out our campaign a lot, we'll give stipends. So whether it's $300, we give $500. The only full-time people we have is basically our campaign manager and our director of tech. But if there are volunteers who do a lot of work for the campaign, we'll give them a stipend. And you know, in these hit pieces, they like to claim like, oh, these are his staffers who would do this. The second thing that I want to mention is, you know, people are movement organizers. They are activists, and nonviolent protests is a staple in American history, dating all the way back to Martin Luther King. And many of these instances that people keep bringing up on these hit pieces against me, number one, they say like, I'm the one who planned it. Like I didn't. Like these people are organizing for housing justice, for people living on the streets. And so, you know, when they go in and they exercise their protesting rights anywhere, you know, it doesn't matter where it is, but they make their voices heard. Like that's what they do, you know. There was no, I don't know about any assault about.
Let me redirect you. The question was.
I know, but you're being.
Oh, am I being bullied?
Dylan, geez, Louise.
Let me finish.
The question was-
Thank you, Dylan. I'll get to it.
Okay.
But
I know on a timeline.
yeah, and so, you know, that is pretty much what these hit pieces are all about. And to your question is, how can I work with city council members? I think we will. With these results that are happening in this lax election and to what's going to happen in November, there are many city council members who are going to leave office, and there are going to be council members who represent the people who are in line with the city controller like myself, who are dedicated to the people. And so I don't see any problem. What I tell people is I don't care what political party you're from, where you are, what you look like. As long as you're down with the people, like I said, for the qualities and the ethics commissioner, I'll be down with you. And if you don't, like I said, the greatest tool that the city controller had is using the bully pulpit and getting the people more engaged and involved. And so, you know, we see council members already moving and shifting towards, you know, hearing more people out, being more progressive and doing that. So, you know, I don't see any a big issue. I think November there's going to be a huge shift, and then in 2024 there's going to be an even bigger shift of council members, and we'll be working together and cohesively.
Okay, thank you. Next, Melanie Winter.
Thanks. Hi, Kenneth. I appreciate your intent to go further and be more transparent with what Galpern has done. I agree. It's a lot there, but then you really can't find what you really want. So I think you're doing a great job. I'm happy about that. I'll stick to the sustainability things. I'm wondering if you, if you would be able to look at district spending with the Cal Enviro Screen overlay. If we're looking to spend, say, state funds in communities that have the highest need, and that's a state-derived metric, can we overlay that in your audit so we can get a look at how well we're doing with that in terms of the city funds as well? And that would relate to the Green New Deal audit. And then the thing I've always been wanting, I want to know if you think this is feasible, is if we can associate greenhouse gas cost, so the cost of carbon, the embodied life cycle cost of carbon for all projects that the city pays for and the council approves. So it has a dollar tag, but it doesn't have a carbon cost. It would be terrific if we could start associating a cost of carbon to all of city taxpayer funded projects. So yeah, the Cal Enviro Screen overlay per district and the greenhouse gas tracking.
Oh, definitely. would love to have that overlay with the coronavirus tracking in terms of what the city's goals are, that to tie in with the Green New Deal, because I think with that transparency, we could actually see if our tax dollars are being used efficiently towards the climate justice. And then secondly, that would be actually really cool if we could tag our dollars and associate greenhouse gases or carbon emissions that the city does approve for any projects or contracts with vendors or developers, and see what that cost is. So that would be something that I would love to look into. So definitely thank you for that question. And yes, I would say yes to both of your questions.
And Melanie, that is something that I have been working with the Energy Committee on for a couple years. So let's continue that conversation.
Yeah, I'm happy to be a resource and work with you on that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next is Rosalie Preston. We have one last one after this, and we'll be able to close this out.
Yes, hello. I'm from the Harbor Gateway North area. But my main question is the city controller, according to the city charter, is the auditor and chief accountant for the city. A lot of the issues that you're talking about seem out of the range of that position. But one of the main issues that the new controller is going to face is a new computer system for processing city employee paychecks and benefits is being implemented. And from what I understand, I mean, it's been in process for years and there's undoubtedly going to be a lot of issues with it. So how are you going to prioritize making sure that that comes off successfully?
Great question. When I actually speak to city employees or past city auditors, they said that our infrastructure around systems are terrible. They're outdated. They don't talk to one another. My experience has been I've implemented ERP systems like NetSuite and Oracle for 2 companies now. So I do have experience actually in terms of implementation with systems. So that is like something that's right up my alley. I do definitely would come in on day one and see what the progress is on that, and seeing if it is more effective, if it is being more efficient and what's being done. Because like you said, it's moving really slow and I would love to see what's happening. And I think just having that knowledge that I do as as an accountant and implementing software implementation could come very handy.
Thank you. And our last question of the night is Barbara Brody. I think I pronounced that correct.
Thanks
I'm sorry
for coming.
earlier.
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened before. Thank you for coming back to me. I'm very curious about your professional experience as a supervisor, who you supervised, how many, what levels, and given the photographs, not hit pieces, but photographs of you in media, the Hillary Clinton photograph, comments about Joe Biden, how are you going to approach your staff in the controller's office to gain their trust and their respect as a new supervisor and their new boss? Also, perhaps not now, but it would be helpful to have your experience in terms of your audits, what types, what sizes of companies, were you a team member, were you a lead on an audit, so that we have a feel for your professional experience.
Great question. I'll answer your second part first. Those pieces about Hillary and Joe Biden, they were brought up before the primary in April. And, like I said, in the LA Times article, those views and what I did, definitely don't represent me or this campaign today. If you've looked at what our campaign has done over the last 2 years since we've launched, it's actually been hyper focused on getting the job done. And I think many voters saw through that, and they know that people make mistakes and people grow. And so definitely, when I talk to our supporters and, they're disappointed, and, I agree, that picture in the 2016, that wasn't even mine. I just held it for 5 seconds and it got snapped. And now now it's the biggest thing about me, right? And so, you know, it wasn't even mine. But definitely growing and making sure that what I do today and in these past 2 years show what a great city controller can do. And I think that's why we won by so much. To your first point about, like, you know, working with people, and in terms of my experience, right? And so, like I told Shelly, because I actually worked with her before, but I graduated college in 2010, was at Ernst & Young and Big Four until 2014, and that's actually where my public accounting CPA experience came from, auditing multi-billion-dollar companies. My clients were aerospace and defense, retail consumer products, a couple of financial service firms, but it was mostly RCP, A&D, and media, consumer relations. And pretty much, you know, my experience there is I was a senior until I quit, and you oversee interns, staff, and you're also the liaison between the managers and making sure that the nitty-gritty work gets done. And so that's my my auditing experience. And then pretty much moving on up from there, you know, working as a senior over supervising people in different cities, making sure that our books were being correctly booked, they were being done in time, doing month-end reconciliations, making sure there were proper signatures and controls in place. The largest team I've had before is about like 7, and I think that's when I was managing accounting for I was overseeing a supervisor, seniors, and some staff, and then we also had some temps too. So definitely on day one, when I walk into 170 controller people in the office, right? My job is to not be a boss to everyone. My job is to work with all the leaders, see how I can be a teammate to them, use my experience as a CPA, as an accountant, as a community organizer, and see how I can help them. And that's not only what I want to do as in the controller's office, but also do it with other city departments too, is know that I want to help them. You know, and I'm really serious because I really care about this city. And I know everyone tries to depict me in some extreme negative light, but I think many voters see through that, and they know that I'm a really, really caring person who just cares about people, the poor, Black and brown people, LGBTQIA women, and you know, and I do understand that you know, my past could be vocal, but just know that I really do care, and I just want to make sure people know where their money's being spent, that the city is doing its best.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. So this is, we are way over time. So Lisa, did we do like closing statements, or did you want to segue into your question?
I actually think Kenneth's last statement was a beautiful closing statement, fortunately.
Okay, awesome. Do you have any last? Okay, so do you want me to segue into the LA Zoo, or just?
I would just love us to thank you, Kenneth. This was really interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in your campaign. It's a very exciting time in the city, and people have different opinions. And thank you for coming and answering so many questions. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens in the coming months.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
You're welcome to stay, of course, and talk about the zoo. But you don't.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about the LA Zoo. And so as a background, about a year ago, this body decided to oppose an expansion at the LA Zoo. And we went with what's called Alternative 1, which was much more low key. And so the zoo went back and came up with what they call Alternative 1.5. This was introduced in July, and we had a very short window. I think by August 29th, we were supposed to submit a comment. So we had an amazing opportunity. It was really an amazing opportunity, and Marian was part of it, who I'll be introducing momentarily. Where did her little screen go? She disappeared. We had the Friends of Griffith Park, several board members from the Friends of Griffith Park and several directors from the LA Zoo came together at a special advocacy meeting. And we had a really, I thought, a very powerful conversation about the vision for the zoo, because the Friends of Griffith Park does not support alternative 1.5. So we put forth a position saying, we need more time. I mean, this is like, I think there's so much to learn, and I think it's possible that there are ways to maybe help the zoo reach its vision without their current plans, but there wasn't enough time to figure out. So we were about to just say we need more time when we found out we had more time. So I don't really know what happened, but we got an extension to September 23rd, 5 p.m. So that's kind of cool and kind of put us in a little bit of a pickle. So I asked the zoo to come tonight, and they were not available, but Marian, who's on the board of the Friends of Griffith Park, is available, and she's going to share with us a PowerPoint. And if we have time, we'll take some questions. And then on September 18th, the advocacy committee will meet again, and we will try to come up with another final recommendation about the LA Zoo's proposal. So I'll give Marian the floor.
Hey, thank you, Lisa. And I can get this going. Okay, so Lisa already gave you some quick background information. The zoo just released their new plan on July 14th. The plan that you looked at and responded to would have modernized this space, built a tram, a funicular, developed underutilized open space. We always love the term underutilized. Built a parking structure, excavated Condor Canyon with climbing walls at a cost of $350 million for phases 1 through 3. Then they came out with a new alternative 1.5, which had a lot of really nice features on it. It eliminated the Africa area, which saved 6 acres of open space and 201 protected trees. They eliminated the aerial tram. Actually, this time they referred to it as an attraction. Previously, it was called a mode of transportation, but now they called it an attraction. They eliminated the multi-story parking structure, and the DWP will be installing solar panels on carports. So it's not a zoo project, it's a DWP project at the zoo. They created a peak visitation management program, which they actually used during pandemic when you had to have reservations, and it limited the number of people who could come on busy days. They eliminated the vineyard in the California area and have promised to use native plantings there instead. However, it still keeps the Condor Canyon. They renamed it Condor Corridor. They still keep the California Visitor Center, and it expands the zoo entry, garden, and park event area. So if you look at this, this is a Google map, and the red line shows you what is currently, this is the California area of what it looks like right now. And it looks.
Marian, I don't see, are you trying to share your PowerPoint?
Oh, do I have to do something special? Tell me what I have to do.
Well, you have to share your screen. We're not seeing it.
Uh-oh. I have to click something on the bottom of the Zoom. Tell me where it is.
Green thing in the middle says share screen.
Got it.
Marian, if you may, this is the 1.25 plan, right? Because I think you said 1.5. This is the new 1.25 plan, right?
1.5.
It's called 1.5.
Oh, I thought this is the 1.25 now. No,
I don't think there's any such thing that I'm aware of.
There isn't any such thing.
Oh, I thought that's okay. My mistake. That's what I thought. That's what I'd been told they were calling it. But okay.
Well, a lot of people would like to see something that might be
that's kind of the dream. 1.25 is the dream.
That's a good way to put it.
That's
Yeah.
what I heard them calling it in another meeting. So my mistake, excuse me for interrupting.
Nope, that's a good question because that's actually what a lot of people would like to see. Okay, so can you see the drawing now?
No.
Go to the green thing that says share screen, click on it.
Yep.
And then a thing should pop up, and whatever you have open on your computer, all those things should be choices. And if you click on the one that you want to share, then we should be able to see it.
Keynote.
Select that and then hit OK.
Open system preferences.
Nope, no.
Okay, I think this might not work because we are really, really behind. Marian, would it be, you could try to email it to me or you could just try to talk. I know the visuals would be great.
Okay,
or
well,
you know what we can do? You know what we can do is we can switch to talking about the oil drilling draft ordinance and give you some time to figure it out. Would that be helpful? We got about 10 minutes.
I should be able to share and I don't know why I can't.
Okay, I'm making an executive decision. I'm gonna let you try to figure that out and I'm gonna move us to oil drilling. Dan, are you able to provide us a little background? And this is something we're gonna vote on, folks.
Hello. Well, it's there's a lot of background, but the story for how we got here, it started in like 2010 with a little girl who had a nosebleed, and her mom happened to work at Esperanza Community Housing, and she knew people at PSR LA. So like the wrong kid got a nosebleed for the oil industry there. Since in the last 12 years, they've been working nonstop to put together a coalition to get us to where we are now. The ordinance that is being considered will prohibit oil drilling, and it will phase out existing oil wells. The ordinance initially will say 20 years. It will take 20 years to phase them out, which is of course too long. When Culver City looked at the question in great detail, they found that a period of 5 years was sufficient, more than sufficient, for the oil companies to make back what they had spent on the wells. And LA is about to go through the same sort of analysis to figure out how quickly we can phase out those existing oil wells. But the point for us today really is we want to support this ordinance because it does what we want. It says no oil drilling in the city. The details need to be worked out a little bit. So that's number one, is we want to support this ordinance. Number two is the coalition behind this whole effort has come up with some talking points that describe what they'd like to see happen in addition to this ordinance.
Dan, I will put the Stand LA talking points and our statement in the chat.
Thank you. And actually, gosh, maybe we should share them. Share a screen.
Oh, well, let's keep simple. I mean, you can, but I'll put them in the chat. You can do what you like. If I
Okay.
do the authority.
All right. Well, let's see. While Lisa is
don't wait for me. Keep talking. We got to multitask.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm pulling up the text myself.
Okay, this is the Stand LA message. These are their talking points that I just put in, just so you know, and then I'll put in the other what we came up with to support that.
Yeah, so the essence of what we wrote is it was sort of saying what Stand LA wanted with our voice and from our point of view. And the Energy Committee had a really great discussion about it, both in our Zoom meeting and in emails thereafter. And oh,
And I
man,
think you're right. If you could share your screen and show, okay, and Marian just
Yeah.
emailed me the presentation. So maybe you can share that and I'll pull up her presentation. Does that
yeah.
work?
So yes, let me dum-de-dum. I am pulling up the document to share. Here we go. I am sharing said document. For those who are wondering if sharing screens is hard, yes, it is always hard. Even
Always
if you're
awkward. It's always awkward.
even if you're an expert.
Yeah.
So I don't know, can people see that? Let me make
Yes.
Yes, that's great. And when I changed it a smidgen with those, I mean, so those changes, like I
That's right.
Because Faith was not, a couple other people didn't like that. Okay, yeah.
So essentially there's 4 points. We want them to phase out the oil wells like Culver City did over a relatively short time period. We're going to be upset if they don't. We want them to promptly plug and abandon each phased out well at the operator's expense. And we want them to engage public health experts to deal with the issue of toxic substances used in oil wells, getting back to the nosebleed problem, and draft regulations to prohibit any which pose a significant risk to the surrounding neighborhood. That is, I think, Stand LA's primary ask. The climate stuff is sort of a coalition building thing for them. It's our main thing, maybe not, but this nosebleed thing is important. And then finally, encourage redevelopment of well sites in a way that benefits the community with community input. Those are 4 simple asks. And I think that it makes sense for us to ask the Planning Commission and everybody who will listen to think about the future of those sites in these terms.
Okay, so you guys, we want to take a vote and I mean, my fantasy, my dream is we don't have any conversation. This is not a new issue. This issue, we've been supporting this issue since 2015. We have supported it continually since. This is the culmination of years of conversations and years of us supporting them. 40 neighborhood councils have supported this over the years. So we just want to take a vote to say yes. I don't know if that's okay. Barbara, your hand is raised. Barbara, go ahead, but let's try to really just vote for this so we can.
No, it's great. I haven't followed it closely, but I am aware of other oil well issues. And I don't know if this talks about the remediation of the site before it even is considered for community use, because remediation of the area, not the well itself, not the plugging of it, but there may be remediation that's needed around it. The second thing is whether it's been discussed, whether it's come up, the fact that oil companies tend to declare bankruptcy at the time when they have to plug their wells. And that leaves the city holding the bag. So I don't know if there's anything that should be discussed, can be discussed, added to this maybe afterwards, that addresses that and makes it harder for them to escape the responsibility that they should bear. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say a couple of things about that super quickly. My understanding, and I could be wrong, is that CalGEM is the one responsible for plugging the wells, and that's it is a problem. The city doesn't have a lot of leverage there. Correct me if I'm wrong. The other thing I just want to make sure everybody knows is I'm representing you guys on the LA City, LA County Just Transition Task Force, which is looking at transitioning workers to good jobs and making sure this is equitable and we're engaging affected communities and looking at the remediation of the site. So that's a different process that's outside of this, this ordinance, as far as I understand, but we are working very actively to come up with a plan to ensure that there is a just transition for communities and workers alike.
Lisa, may I say a couple of words?
Yes, you may.
First off, there may be an oil production tax on the ballot. I remember a council motion related to that, and that would be an opportunity to claw back some funds for capping wells. And second, I'd like to point out that Stand LA has been working this issue for 12 years nonstop, and they've done a masterful job. If they think these are essentially the talking points that need to be covered today at this planning commission meeting, I'm inclined to think they know what they're talking about. And let's not defocus on and address any of the remaining issues, which we know are real, but are perhaps beyond the scope of this moment.
Perfect. As Christine said, let's vote. Muriel, are you able to do that for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's see. Oh my gosh, let me, I need to have all the names lined up. Okay.
Lisa, shall I stop sharing yet?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'll just start off the top. Lisa?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I vote yes. Chris, I'm gonna go by board member and then I'll just go down the list.
Yes.
Okay. Charles?
Yes.
Okay. Glenn?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Okay. Pat Bates?
Yes.
Faith Mura?
Yes.
Okay. Mindy?
Yes.
AJ?
Yes.
Laura Gonzalez?
Yes.
Christine? Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't get my microphone. Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. Kathy Schreiner?
I need to abstain because I don't have authority to vote on policy, but I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Melanie?
Yes.
Nish?
Yes.
Devon?
Yes.
Thank you. Richard?
Yes.
And let's see. Leonel? Leonel?
Oh, yes, please.
Thank you. And Sandeep?
Yes.
Thank you.
And John, I think John is here, but he isn't, he can't vote. But John, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Still at the booth.
I'm gonna say can't vote.
Okay, so it's yes, 18, no, 0 no's, and 1 abstention.
2 abstentions. Did we get everybody? It's John and Kathy abstaining.
Oh, yes, John is abstained. Thank you. So it's actually out of 20, so 18, 0, 2.
Great. Did we got everybody? Nobody's saying we missed them? Great, thank you. Perfect. Okay, I am going to thank you guys. That's very exciting. There's a tentative hearing with the Planning Commission, tentatively scheduled for September 22nd. When we get more information, we'll share it with our Energy Committee. And if you want to be involved and join in and make a public comment, you are welcome to. Yeah, good question about Somebody could put the council file in. Thank you. Yeah, it's from 2017. It's just been the most arduous, painful process, but we are making progress. Okay, back to the zoo. I hope this is, oh, wait. I thought, oh, here it is. Okay, sorry about that. I have it open. Okay, where did the, oh, this is, okay, sorry, you guys are in my way. Okay, there we go. All right. Marian, and the floor is yours.
Okay, so if you go quickly to the next slide. And this, you already had a very good background on this. This is the one that you responded to last year. Next, please. And then the zoo, because we raised such a hullabaloo, thank you all for helping out with that, about their project. They came out with alternative 1.5, which had good things, like it got rid of the Africa area, the aerial tram, the parking structure, and it created a peak visitation management program. It got rid of the vineyard in California. However, it still kept the Condor Canyon and it kept the California Visitor Center. Next, please. The circle in red is what the area that would become the California Center looks like now. And it's chaparral, like you see in 90% of Griffith Park. So that whole area is what they are going to develop under 1.5. And if you're all oriented, down at the bottom of the screen, on the lower right-hand corner is the zoo parking lot. And then the entrance, you go up the gray pathway is the entrance to the zoo. Next. So the California area would destroy 16.1 acres of habitat. It would take out ceanothus, sumac, lemonberry, scrub oak, Nevins barberry, which is
Marian, I'm sorry, I think my screen moved and I was somehow. Am I on the wrong screen?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine. It would also remove protected trees like live oak, toyon, and elderberry at a cost of 26 protected trees. Next. This is the existing zoo footprint, and all of the area that's in kind of a tan color is what they call the undeveloped, underutilized area. The yellow represents administrative area, but I want you to look at the legend on the corner of the map and look at the description for the green. The green represents animal conservation and visitor service areas. So they lump together taking care of animals and creating event space for the zoo with restaurants and things for visitors, which has nothing to do with care for the animals, which makes it difficult to really analyze what they're planning to do. Next. This is a map of the species that are currently in the California area. And well, they actually have mapped out various and sundry species, but this is, I think it's going to be a little difficult for you to see, but there are valuable species in that area. Next. In the new plan, if you look at the zoo entry, which is on the right-hand side, there's the yellow line for administration, and there's a green area outside of the red line. They are putting in or expanding an entry park. Is called a garden, entry garden and park. It will be the size of a football field. So it's another event space. So you don't have to feel sorry for the zoo for losing an event space because, you know, like everybody else, they're trying to earn revenue. And it's interesting that you were talking about the mayor's Green New Deal, because this plan would destroy a great deal of what's currently green space. And in the California area, that's where they are putting in, they are excavating a 60-foot deep canyon to join the California area and go over to where the bird show is. The area that's in kind of a pink color up near the top is their condor conservation area that they're trying to show off that. But, you know, digging a trench 60-foot deep all the way around that circle that you saw on the map is highly, highly destructive. It would be 6,000 trucks, 74 cubic yards of dirt to be moved. It would be a total mess and leave a disaster. Next, please. This is what their new California area is supposed to look like, where they have number 1, they would display grizzly bears. Number 2 or number 3 would be pronghorn sheep. And then curving through the middle, it's red and white lines curving through the middle. That is where the trench would be that would join. And they say they need it for ADA access, but they already have ADA access via a tram that goes around the outside edge of it. So they don't really need it for ADA access. And the new entry park would be that green lump. It's in very pale, down by the entry would be the new entry garden and park. Next, please. Okay, this is the alternative that you recommended in your previous letter, which did not destroy any of the new, the California area. The brown on the left-hand side in the Africa area is the part that they were going to turn into their exhibit, and they are going to leave that alone and actually enhance the oak woodland, clean out the invasives, plant native plants and as an understory. Next, please. And this is probably difficult to see, but a way of comparing plans. So as I said, a lot of people were very happy to see many of the things that were eliminated from the plan were very good, but we are not happy that they still left in the Condor Canyon to excavate that huge trench through the middle of Chaparral. And they're going to develop, there's a high top area up where the merry-go-round is, the new merry-go-round that they have, which should be turned into a visitor center. So all of that would greatly alter the look and the feel of that chunk of land. So what a lot of people are doing, and it's interesting that you mentioned alternative 1.25, because that's kind of what people are saying, yes, we could support alternate 1.5 if you did not build the Condor Canyon and if you did not develop the California area. So that kind of ends up being like a 1.25. So, any questions?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Mindy.
Where was that merry-go-round? Because I heard them talking about the ridge line where they wanted to put that in, but I now that I'm looking at the map, I couldn't tell where that was. Where was that? What area is that upper ridge where they want to have that?
It's, if you go back to the slide that has the circle on it. It's, or are you familiar with the zoo at all?
I know, but I haven't been there for a while, and even when it's so to answer your question, yes, but it's certainly in terms of this, I can't place it.
All right, the zoo is, yeah, right there. Okay, if it's in the on the left-hand side of the oval. And you go up on the top of that, you can see it was kind of like a bare pathway on the top. That's the ridge line. Also, I forgot to mention that, you know, the city's been working on getting a ridge line protection ordinance for umpteen years, as you well know from Hillside Federation. So this would destroy a ridge line beside all the other things. And then if you're coming back from Pasadena towards Griffith Park, you will suddenly see it all chewed up. Like today, when you come back, you can see the Toyon landfill that was put in, oh, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago. And it's still totally visible. It's a big scar on the land. And this would be a scar on the land as well. So the merry-go-round is on the south end of that ridge, and the California area would develop the top of that ridge line with restaurants, event spaces, and so on.
So is the plan to actually, because I know that they're taking out a lot of soil and then they claim they're not taking it off the property, but then putting it back. But is the plan to actually just remove the entire ridge line or a portion of the ridge line? What are they planning on doing to that actual ridge line?
It's hard to say because the only time I heard about we're not going to take any of the soil off and export it, we're going to keep it on site. That was a very new thing that they were claiming just with this. So they said they're going to raise up some of the lower areas. They're going to develop a new children's playground that would be just off outside of that oval on the left-hand side. So it'd be a new playground down there. And so they're going to put some, but that's a lot of dirt.
Yeah, it is. So that, I mean, so that's why I'm wondering if they're really going to level the whole thing and then try to just put it all kind of redesign the entire thing.
I don't know where, but here's, if you look down at the bottom of this screen, you see the parking lot and you see the bare dirt area there. It's behind the gray rooftops of the education buildings. There's just a bare dirt area down by the parking lot. That's where their new entry, garden, and park will be down there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have 4 hands raised and 0 time. Let me ask you folks, are you willing to go? Are you okay with going about 10 minutes over tonight? Does that work for folks? Because we can try to do that and just give you folks a little more time. And then what's going to happen is we're going to take this to the advocacy committee on the 18th, and then we're going to have to run it to the board via email. And then we'll have to vote as a group by email on the plan again. Because it's due the 23rd. So we will, that's how it's going to be wrapped up. Let's move quickly. We have Ernie, who is a former board member. So thank you.
I'll save the time. Thank you so much. Marian, thank you so much for your volunteerism and doing what you're doing to conserve this gem of a urban open space. 2 questions. Has the Santa Monica Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy chimed in on this? First question. Second question is, do we have any idea what the environmental impact will be of doing all of this work, as in how much carbon emissions will be emitted by having to trench this Condor Canyon? Thank you.
They've been very vague about all of those things. I can't remember if we have a letter of support from the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, but we have from the Audubon, from the California Native Plant Society. Travis Longcore has written a great letter explaining something I didn't go into at all, but when you bring in all of those events, the events would mostly be in the evening, and that would mean light. So it'd be a light impact on the animals, which many studies have shown it really disrupts the animals' circadian rhythms. Noise, because parties usually have music. They have music and flashing lights, so that would be a great impact. But yeah, we have we've gotten lots of supports from lots of environmental groups.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. Nice to see your name and hear your voice. Joanne.
Hi. Well, I had a tour with the zoo people. And one of the things that stood out to me, I took the tour before looking at the EIR, and BOE wrote the FREIR, and the zoo people are trying to minimize some of the things that are in that EIR, saying, well, yeah, but, you know, and we're going to try to work with being as conservation as possible. And I think they're naive, to be very honest, because they think that, you know, I mean, I deal with trying to preserve trees with construction all the time, and that once you get the construction crews in there, forget it. You know, the trees just don't stay. Yeah. And the zoo people actually didn't mention that there would be a second event center at the top event venue, and they showed us that area near the entry, that the dirt area that Marian was showing us, and said, this is the event area. And, you know, we naively said, oh, will you try to preserve those perimeter trees there? And not realizing that there was this whole other one at the top of the hill that they never mentioned.
Well, there's an Africa Visitor Center and a California Visitor Center. So they have plenty of visitor center space.
And here's the irony of the whole thing. They have this flat parking lot that, talk about underutilized. You know, if they turned that parking lot into zoo area, they would have lots of space, and they could build a parking structure even underground if they don't want to look at it. I mean, look at what Griffith Observatory did with underground stuff. So it seems like what they don't realize is if BOE is the lead, and I have some experience with BOE with the sidewalk repair program, and they are not environmental. I mean, you bring something, the zoo thinks that they're going to put in permeable walkways. And every time we've talked to BOE about permeable anything, sidewalks, whatever, they say, nah, they don't work. You know, so I mean, talk about silos in the city, you know. And then let's say one more thing. The woman who is now in charge of the zoo is determined to bring people from South LA to the zoo, you know, because she wants them to experience nature. This after much of the nature is destroyed. And I mean, if she wants them to experience the zoo, they should build a zoo in South LA, because the interns the paid interns that they have now that are coming up from South LA can't get to the zoo without 2 hours on public transportation each way. So this is going to be difficult for families without cars to get there. And so the whole thing is not very well thought out. It's like a wishful thinking project, instead of saying, you know, do we have transportation for people to come here? Should this, and also the zoo is down to way fewer animals than they ever had. And they want to bring in a whole lot more animals. Now, zoos are not exactly something that people in the environmental community are really eager about. I mean, I think the condor work that they're doing is magnificent, but it doesn't mean that these condors have to have a hillside blown up so that the public can see these condors. I mean, the work is going on regardless of what can be seen, and they can bring children in on tours. In fact, there was once
Okay, Joanne,
Yeah, one more thing. There was a
One
thing of
more thing.
closing the zoo and just making it a research center and have children tours to it. And that might be the right answer. So thank you for the time.
Yeah, I
Nice
think
meeting
part of the problem is that the plan was conceived by a consulting group called Wood. And I think you kind of nailed it. It was just a wish list of how many things can I ask for, you know, without a great deal of thought. So
Thank you. Rosalind.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that I think this updated plan just fails to continue to take into account the growing pressures on the ecosystem, on the plant and wildlife from climate change is increasing, the drought impacts are increasing. And I just don't think that such a big chunk out of the Griffith Park ecosystem that we can weather it the way we might once have been able to weather it. I also think there are fire dangers surrounding that area. And I don't know, I haven't really seen that that's been adequately addressed. And I would wonder if the zoo is really, I support good conservation work that they do, but I think that they need to look at whether they can do conservation work that's more integrative with the landscape as opposed to completely changing the landscape. So a few thoughts there, but I don't think it should be supported in its current form because we can't weather this ongoing heavy landscape impact development. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Marian, I'm gonna go quickly to Melanie. These are new hands, but Melanie has actually been really helpful to me in this process. So we have to hear her, and then Mindy super fast. Where did Melanie go? Go ahead.
I'm right here. Thanks. I mean, I've been trying to really follow this as closely as I can. And for me, it just comes down to this. A lot of this is in conflict with the Green New Deal, with a lot of initiatives and ordinances the city's trying to move forward. This doesn't pass muster with the things we're trying to do. And that Bureau of Engineering should not be that out of tune. And they need to be slapped upside the head. But a project this large needs to be out ahead of those kind of initiatives, especially one that is representing the zoo, whose core focus is conservation. So we need to hold their feet to the fire on that. And I 100,000% agree with Streets for All on this. They have, if you look at the total footprint of the zoo, so much of it is surface parking. That's a lot to work with. And they're still adding parking spaces. They shouldn't be doing that. There's plans going on with other departments to increase multimodal access to the zoo. That's what they should be supporting. My big thing is, besides the parking and the multimodal stuff, and conforming with our other initiatives and leading as sanitation of all things is that they should be taking advantage of the city sanctioned working group on the biodiversity initiative. So the Biodiversity Expert Council needs to sit down with the zoo folks, and I think with the zoo folks first and foremost, and come up with, talk about the things where there's conflict, look at alternatives, and then go to engineering and their designer and say, here's the parameters, guys, figure this out. Engineering is a pain in the ass, but if the zoo people can sit down with the Biodiversity Expert Council and have some real good collaborative, consensus directed working sessions, that would be great.
I'd love to see that in your letter.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Thank you. Mindy.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. So I'll just have to back what both Rosalind and Melanie just said. I mean, we are trying to pass the wildlife ordinance right now. So both trying to protect both the ridgelines and trying to protect as much land and open space in the Santa Monica Mountains as we can. So this kind of project to me just doesn't make sense. And to try to do conservation on the back of destroying this kind of protected land, it seems irrational to me. So yeah, so to conserve on one hand, but when you're destroying something, and I know that they kept saying when I brought this up, well, we're not really destroying, we're trying to enhance. Well, you're taking land that is open space, and even if it's not all oak trees and original protected species, it's still land where we have wildlife at this point. And so, like I said, I'll be brief. I'm not going to say anything more. It doesn't make sense to me, given where we are right now in terms of protecting biodiversity and open space in the Santa Monica Mountains. And 16 acres is a big chunk of land. So like I said, we need to find a better way to move forward on this project.
Okay, thank you. Marian, do you have a closing sentence or two?
No, but I hope that you will write a letter. It goes to Norman Mundy. I think you have the information.
Yes, we'll do that. Thank you. Perfect. I'll just close by saying, Jerry explained something that was very helpful to me. We can submit something to the council file, but we actually really what's more important is submitting it to Norman Mundy, because they will have to respond to every comment submitted.
Yes.
And eventually all of that will end up in the council file. So you can do both, but the most important one is actually submitting anything to Norman Mundy. So we'll plan on doing both.
And then I have a question. Does this committee have the capability of submitting a CIS?
No, we do not have that authority, but a lot of people here are connected to organizations that can, but not within this time frame. That's the problem.
Okay.
We don't have the time.
Yeah, it's a problem for a lot of people.
Yes, including us, obviously. Okay, thank you so much, Marian. That was great. And now we're going to talk really, really fast about the Olympics. We don't have time to say more, but I want you folks to know that we were approached. We were on a list, and LA28 reached out to us and asked us to apply to be on a sustainability working group. I thought this was super exciting, and I was like, yes, let's do it. But I couldn't attend the information meeting, so Rosalind and others attended. And Rosalind felt, I'm going to just say Rosalind raised some red flags that we would not be engaged as early in the process as would be ideal. And this could be a little bit of greenwashing, political cover that we don't really want. And then we got a very strongly worded email from SAGE, Strategic Alliance for a Just Economy. And they're an LA organization that does a lot of housing and immigrant work. And they said, we're not participating, and this is why, and they had a lot of demands. So that's gotten several of us quite worked up, but I've had conversations with many, many people, and Rosalind and others have helped me think through this. And I think we're going to apply with some caveats and with some communications about what we want that to look like. So more to come on that. If you want to get involved, I guess reach out to me, because I'm actually not sure if this is going to go to a committee. I don't know what this is going to look like. Glenn, go ahead.
Yes, I mean, I think it's important that there be some poor soul who is engaging with LA28. I can tell you that for several years now, folks in the Valley have been attempting to get information from the organizing committee because of the 4 venues in the second largest open space in the Valley, the Sepulveda Basin. And we've been met with no, or we don't know anything. So if they now know something, it would be important to figure that out. I won't go into the details, but just know that there are a number of us who are very concerned about their definition of a temporary facility, which is how they've marketed, and I think actually included in their application for some of the venues, versus a permanent facility that would obviously, with an investment of millions and millions of dollars, permanently altered. So it's very important that we be engaged in some manner, in some way.
Okay, thank you. And I will probably take this to the advocacy committee. Rosalind had a good idea, and we'll probably take this to the advocacy committee. So to be continued, but we are planning to apply, so you know. Melanie.
I'll just say a good criteria is to ensure that the communities that are being most impacted, like those surrounding the basin, those surrounding bench spaces, are at the table and, you know, have a strong voice. And, you know, if they have concerns that aren't being addressed, then we leave, you know, I mean, that's.
Yes, that's exactly, that. Just so you know, that is exactly, everybody we've talked to is landing about what you just said, Melanie. So that's perfect. Thank you.
Cool beans, thanks.
Nish.
Yeah, sorry, question, just so I understand, like, so we're applying to be part of their LA28 Sustainability Council, is that right?
Called the
Or working group?
Sustainability Working Group.
Got you. And Can you expand a little on Sage's concerns about greenwashing and whatnot?
I cannot because it's 8:36. You
Right.
could come, we will discuss this more in our advocacy committee. And actually, if I remember, I can just forward you the email.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you.
I don't know when I'll do that, to be honest, but I'll write a note to do it. Okay.
Good crack at the whip tonight, Lisa.
I won't do it tonight. I won't do it tonight. I promise you I will not do it tonight. Okay. Now I think we get to do our closing stuff. So let's do it fast. I'm going to share my screen, I hope, and pull up if they're still here. They're not. Okay, sorry. I got stuck with the I have the Friends of Griffith Park stuff. So bear with me while I find the other things. And I will talk while I'm looking for it. We're bringing on 2 cool LA fellows for Cool Blocks. I'm super excited. They're starting in a couple weeks or so. And we're gonna have an event on Cool Blocks at the Congress of Neighborhoods, which is September 24th. So it'd be really fun to see you folks there. And also connected to Cool Blocks, we are co-sponsoring an event with Climate Reality Project, San Fernando Valley and Orange County, and Cool Petaluma and Cool Irvine it's an energy electrification workshop. So we all of us, unless you've already done it, have to figure out how to change how we get our heat and cool and water and stove and all that stuff. And this workshop is designed to help you do that. So it's going to be September 19th, and you can Google Cool Irvine and you will find the link to RSVP. So I think it'll be good, and we'll do others like that. Advocacy, the LA Zoo, we talked about draft wild ordinance might be in a little trouble. We'll talk about that. I hope single-use plastics, we have good news. And yeah, I think I need to put the Olympics on the advocacy committee because we have a plan for doing that. Our next meeting has been rescheduled because of Labor Day. It will be September 18th. Energy, Dan, are you still here? Dan? Okay. He might not be here, but you heard about the oil well phase out. Super exciting. The meeting on September 22nd, we discussed, oh, I don't know what that other council file he's talking about is. I guess we'll learn in the energy committee. Transportation. Muriel.
No, I couldn't find the unmute button, sorry. We had a meeting right on the 1st. We had a presentation from Urban Mobility Lab. We also had a presentation from the Thai Community Center, Thai Development Community Center on expanding Blue LA and Blink. There was a Healthy Streets LA meeting update. There was a climate mobilization meeting update. We had a brief discussion on vehicle idling and also the LA Metro CIO announcement. Yeah, so it was a very packed meeting.
Great, thank you very much. Trees, Joanne.
Hi. So the Trees Committee is not going to meet in September, but we're going to have 2 wonderful workshops. One being given by myself at 8 a.m. On September 24th, and the other being given by Charles, our new liaison and board member, at 10:05 a.m. The subjects are in this slide. I won't use up your time here. And to register, just go to the neighborhood. You can just Google Neighborhood Congress LA and the site will come up, and you can apply for an Eventbrite ticket. You don't have to indicate your workshops, just register for a ticket, and it'll come in your email, and then you can just get the Zoom then.
Okay, great, thank you. I think that's it for us, right? All right, I should put the eval in the, sorry, I don't know how to unshare my screen. Where there it is. Like Dan said, it's always a little challenging. Okay, thank you folks for hanging here as long as you have. Please do complete the evaluation. This was a bit of a, oops, that's changed. I'll put it, I need to find the link again, but I'll do that right now. Does anybody have any announcements? Glenn, surely you have an announcement.
Well, if you insist. So for those of you who have interest in any particular city departments, the budget advocates will have their second session with the CAO's office on Monday, October 3rd, starting at 6 p.m. That's where they go over how the departments get the money, how much money they get, what the process is, et cetera, et cetera. And this actually is a bit timely because we expect within the next week or so, the mayor will send out his annual budget memo to the city departments, who will then prepare their budget requests for the next fiscal year. That'll typically is due beginning of November. So it's kind of a busy time for that process for budget advocates in terms of meeting with the departments, as many as we can before they submit their request, even after they submit their request, getting copies of the request, see what they're requesting. But for those of you that might be interested in knowing more about the city's budgeting process, it's by Zoom. You're welcome to attend. We also have the first session, which is about the revenues. If you're interested in that, it's posted on the website, budgetadvocates.org, and I'll put that into chat. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Joanne, thank you for putting in the Congress. I meant to do that. And I also meant to put the chat for the event that's on the 19th. So I will do that right now. And Barbara, you go ahead, Barbara.
Two heads up on sign related issues having to do with the visual environment, public safety, and the aesthetics in our city. Number one, Metro has just released a DEIR for something called their Transit Communications Network Program, which seeks to install full-size digital billboards throughout the city of Los Angeles on shared public right-of-way that is owned by Metro and the city. So the DEIR should be looked at. Unfortunately, no one I know and none of our councils received notice of the scoping period. So I'm not sure how the DEIR is going to look and whether it's going to do a good job at looking at alternatives and mitigations. But this is not good for the environment. It's not good for undermining the city's sign policy, which may result in them losing the ability to regulate billboards and offsite signs. So it's a whole new chapter in the sign sagas. Second one is that the staff program, the Public Works recommendation for the new transit shelter program is moving forward. The council had a joint finance and public works committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. They have not funded the program. And honestly, it appears as though it is a Trojan horse for the city's effort to adopt a new LA municipal code that will allow unlimited, undefined advertising structures on the public right-of-way. Instead of planting trees, we will be planting digital information kiosks, courtesy of the Convention and Tourism Bureau, billboards from Metro, and our street banners will no longer publicize the Hollywood Bowl and museums, but instead might have Spam and Kellogg's cornflakes. Staff is not funded. It will take $240 million. City has 1 million earmarked, Metro's giving 5. The elements that were presented to us in all of the public outreach sessions, including the demonstration, showed water stations, cooling stations, Wi-Fi, lockers, all kinds of things. Those don't exist in the contract. They're now considered to be secondary or optional.
Okay,
no
Barbara, I think it's more like an agenda item instead of an announcement. So I'm gonna.
All right. 2 weeks from now, it will show up before the full council, and it needs to go back to Public Works to create a real program that will really reinvest the money raised in ads, limited as they could be, to do shade and shelter for transit riders. This might not give anything to transit riders over the 10-year contract. That will be a real improvement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us. And really great conversations tonight. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Stop recording.